Tróna moi, people. Okay. So I got started on time. That was a relief. So I'm gonna take this seriously from now on in terms of starting on time. So there's a few of the recent broadcasts I did were a little bit whatchamacallit, tardy in getting started. So good. Don't know if we've got anybody in, but this is as much for replay. I'm going to keep it short and sweet. Okay, so I've noticed, as I'm sure you might have noticed, that there is a new epistemology. Epistemology is your study of how you get knowledge. There seems to be a new rule that everything on MSM is lies and everything on alternative media is good. So it's almost like a simple rule dichotomy: MSM man bad, alternative man, media man good. Now it's too simplistic. It just doesn't work, and you end up missing stuff, good stuff in the MSM that you can actually use. And don't forget that Joe Public believes in the MSM. So if you can get a story that backs up your arguments from MSM, it's going to be 10 times more powerful than the story that you present from the alternative media that they haven't heard of, or they can like call, oh, this is like your conspiracy theory bullshit or your ultra far right bull. So this is why it's important. If there is MSM stories that you can use, that you do use them, because they convert, they can red pill. On the flip side, if you present alternative media sources that aren't good, you're just gonna blow holes in your argument. Okay, so let's go through this article. It's an article that I came across on the RTE. I'll just explain. I'll just introduce it before I bring it up. A couple of days ago, I think it was the 24th. I think it's been updated to the 25th. Apologies if you have seen it before, but to my knowledge, I haven't seen any other YouTubers going through this article. And I think it's a good one to go through. Here it is. New Zealand seeing the benefits of strict lockdown. I've lost it again. Okay. So let's go through. I mean, there seems to be this feeling that there's not one single sentence. I mean, the implication is that everything in the MSM is bad, and that the implication is that every single sentence, every single line, every single paragraph is all lies. And we're going to see that isn't the case. There is bias, of course, but there's a lot of good stuff, good information that you can pull out. So let's read. And comparing the spread of COVID-19 between the Republic of Ireland and New Zealand, a University of Auckland academic highlighted the reduced numbers of community transmissions and the closing of its borders as reasons why New Zealand has achieved much in stemming the virus. So, it's because the guy's name is further down. I thought his name was in a paragraph, but it's not. Given the similarity in the population size of the two countries, Eamon O'Brien, a professor of mathematics, said the number of community transmissions was key in explaining some contrasting stats. So we can quickly verify if this guy exists. I looked him up earlier. Let me just check in with the chat. Can you guys see that? Oh, actually, could you see his profile there? So look, there's there he is. He exists. We can verify that that part of it is true. Oh, you see, we're not as whiz. And we can verify from population statistics. So this is all verifiable, and it's something that he said, so that can be easily verified. If this is like he's an Irish guy, and he's going to be aware that his name turned up in the paper, and if the paper prints, sorry, it's not the paper, it's the RTE. If the RTE said that he said something that he didn't, if they print that if they misquote him, obviously his family are going to let him know, or he's going to find out, and he's going to be on to them. And there is this thing called the Press Council of Ireland, the Office of the Press Ombudsman, so that if there is some degree of accountability there for the press. So I'm defending the amount of democracy and accountability that we do have. Now, it's not perfect, of course, but there is something there. We can't throw out the baby with the bathwater. There is, I know that Herman Kelly, for example, of the Irish Freedom Party, is always onto these guys about misrepresentation of the Irish Freedom Party in the press, which they want to do. I'm not saying it's always effective, but you know, at least there's sometimes you know, he does get his corrections sustained. Okay, so we were looking at this paragraph. We've established that he exists, and what he said. You know, that they wouldn't be able to print that if it wasn't true. So we're going to say we're going to mark that as, yeah, this is where you find out that I haven't upgraded to Deagle. Let's change that color to green. Yeah, so that's true. We're going to come back to the first paragraph because it's verifiable. There have been 17 deaths in New Zealand compared to almost 800 here. This is the sort of thing you can use a third-party data aggregator. Oh, right, okay. I'm off the main page of that. To establish now, this is like an independent. Oh yeah, the previous page was showing all the governments and universities that use this. So if this is going to be giving fake information, there's a lot of people involved in the hoax, which I think any reasonable person would say that's given human nature to have a hoax that size and everybody on point. You know, it's not reasonable to suggest that this data is hoaxed. You can look through that and you can verify. We're not going to bother about that now, but you can verify the figures for Ireland and the figures for New Zealand. So, you know, that's back here. This is all sort of verifiable stuff. So let's say that's true. That's verified as well. Just make it green. The reason I'm doing this is when we get to the end of the article, we want to see how much of it is verified and how much of it is questionable. Okay. Now notice I haven't done the title yet or the first paragraph, so maybe there's some issues there. Let's come back. He also pointed out that the dispersion of people due to a greater land mass may be one factor which contributes to the difference between community transmission rates of the two countries, which he said is 4% in New Zealand compared to 50% in Ireland. So again, this is all direct speech. He said this, right? So RTE is saying that he said this. If he didn't say that, he would be very quick to get on to RTE and ask for correction. So we're going to say, because that's just a direct speech, may as well be a speech bubble or inverted comma in between quotes. So that's verifiable too. We'll just change it. Maybe should have gone for green to be verified, but you know, sorry, yellow. Professor O'Brien said that the crucial factor that reduced New Zealand's transmission rate was the closure of the country's borders on the 19th of March, when all non-residents were banned from admission. Now, this is, again, that's what he said, so that's easy to verify. So we're going to put this down as not lies. Yeah, it's verifiable, and the fact that we can assume it's true, given that he hasn't contacted. He's a real person. Remember, we established that from his profile. Okay, so he said that New Zealand's transition, the crucial factor was the closure of the country's borders on the 19th of March. But let's look at the headline. The headline says New Zealand seeing the benefits of strict lockdown. It doesn't say closing the borders. So this is where the biases come in. The biases come in the headline. Yeah, I freely admit, yeah, we're searching for where the bias is and where the bias isn't. And if we, let's take that pink to be red, which means danger, danger, lies, okay, or lies or skew or bias. And remember, we left this paragraph as well, so let's go back. In comparing the spread of the COVID-19 between the Republic of New Zealand and the University of Auckland academic highlighted the reduced numbers of community transmission transmissions and the closing of its borders. Now, notice that the professor said, yeah, he was a professor. Yeah, Professor O'Brien said the closing of the borders was the key factor. So the closing of the borders should really come first. And this is where the bias comes in. It's not so much in the material facts, because we've established those. It's the little subtle things to do with language, by putting community transmissions first and closing of borders second. So we're going to say this is questionable, and this paragraph exhibits bias. I'll just change the color. If I'm ever doing this again, I'll figure out a faster way to do that. Right, down here. He added that since then, anyone coming into the country is being quarantined at the airport for 2 weeks, courtesy of the government. Again, that's just direct quote. Okay, we'll maybe highlight stuff in the group here to save time. Again, here's a direct quote, so this is like verifiable. We can assume it's true. The person is real. It's a major source. There would have been complaints to the Press Complaints Authority, and there would have been, you know, a newspaper or a news service can't be caught printing, untruths too often, or they're just going to lose all their credibility with the normies. So they're careful. They are careful about these sorts of things, getting the quotes right, etc. Of course, this he's not an enemy of the state as far as they're concerned, so they have to, they give the full quote rather than just little sound bites like they might do with myself, or Herman Kelly, or Justin Barrett, for example. I'm not putting myself in the same fold as those guys, of course, but just somebody who's on, the Irish nationalist side. People are being picked up at one of the country's 3 airports that are open and are being brought into in most cases, very nice hotel where they stay for 2 weeks. Okay, so now he's talking about the quarantine side. This is like their citizens, their returning citizens, are quarantined for 2 weeks, put up by the government, which of course isn't happening in Ireland, but we'll get into that in a minute. People do not go back to their community and have contact with others. The Irish figures are worrying. So that was a direct quote, and then we're back into indirect quotations, where he said, but New Zealand is now reporting just 2 or 3 new cases per day on the back of 100,000 tests compared to 120,000 in the Republic. Here the lockdown is serious and it is strictly enforced. People get upset and angry if they see others not complying. So again, that's a direct quote. This one starts, Professor O'Brien mentioned that random testing of customers is being carried out at supermarkets. Again, that's a mixture of indirect quote and direct quote. That's all good. He also referenced the term dobbing in when people report others who are not observing COVID-19 restrictions. That's an indirect quote with a direct mention of the one phrase. Here's another direct quote. I won't even read through it. Well, okay, let's do it because we want to see how useful this article is to convince our normies. Here, the lockdown is serious and is strictly enforced. People get upset and angry if they see others not complying. They report or dob people into the police if they're not observing it. Okay, well, that's an arguable point. Well, the fact, okay, for the purposes of this discussion, it's what he said, and then RT is not lying about it. He said New Zealand's biggest city, Auckland. Okay, there's again another quote, another indirect quote, another stark difference according to Professor O'Brien, and then here's a direct quote and a direct quote. So basically we can say all of this from where we were is verifiable and trustworthy because it's direct quotes, right? So it leaves us with, look how much of that, okay, look how much of this is good information because it's direct quotes from the guy himself or a reporting of what he said. There's like 90% of that article is is good information. Now, if you just discounted this article because it came from RTA, RTA bad, okay, all the information is, yeah, it does have a bias. Look, we've seen the bias in the title. We've seen the bias in the first paragraph. As soon as they get into making a commentary on the facts, highlighted the reduced numbers, the way that he's tried to hide the closing of the borders there, as the second thing mentioned, whereas the professor had said it was a key the crucial factor. Here we go. The crucial factor. So there's the bias, but the rest of it, you know, apart from those bits of bias, the rest of it is fantastic. And you can share that with a normie, and you can say, you can say, you can put a cover note. Look how RTE, look how this professor says that the key factor in New Zealand's which is 2% of Ireland's death rate, is the fact that they closed the borders. You can put a wee, you can put that on your Facebook profile and have a blurb above it, and notice, and you can also make a point. Notice how RTE don't put that in the title. And I'm going to show you a guy. I'm going to show you somebody who's actually done that. All right, guys. Hi, M3, Paul O'Neill, Jay Cahill. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us. Let me get back to. I'm doing a new way of opening the screens here, so it's not as easy for me to see what people are saying at the same time as I'm talking about the screens I've got open. So yeah, I was about to show. Right. So there's somebody who has picked up this article and has done exactly what I said, which is like spread. Taking the article, and he's a nationalist. This person is a nationalist, and they've spotted out on their Twitter to their followers with a wee little blurb on top. So let's have a look. It's this guy, Sean O'Donnell, Irishman, Eamon O'Brien, a professor of maths in New Zealand, said on Liveline. Okay, so this guy was actually called into Liveline, that the reason there was such a massive difference between Ireland's number of deaths and New Zealand was they had the guts to ban travel in around 20th of March. Does he actually? The thing he doesn't do is he doesn't. Well, he refers back to Liveline, right? And as regards to the ongoing bias in the RTE newsroom, in fairness, they put a piece about the story on their website, which is what the article we've just looked at. But it was too much to outline the story in the headline. Instead, the headline erroneously suggested that his main point was that New Zealand operated a strict lockdown. So there we've seen the bias. New Zealand seeing the benefits of a strict lockdown. So the RTE bias. But the rest of it is all good. So I actually shared that article. I was having a backwards and forwards with a relative about. She gets that the cases came in from Italy. She told me that about 2 weeks ago. I said, or whatever it was. I said, yeah, I already know. And I said, well, the thing was like Ireland didn't close the borders, and she was arguing with me. But when I sent her this article, because she has a lot of faith in RTE, there was like silence. There was no argument from her after that. So this is an example of how mainstream media, if you take a nuanced approach and you know how to verify, parts of it and look for the bias and identify where the bias is and where the bias. Now, if this had been an article that was like 3/4 bias and like 1/4 verifiable facts, I maybe wouldn't have used it, because like it's given too much. It's given them. I wouldn't forward it on possibly, or I would like highlight the part. I would make sure and highlight, or just maybe take a screenshot of the part that was useful. But given that this one is mainly all good information, I decided to share it in its entirety. And it also depends on your audience. If your audience is unsophisticated or believes everything that mainstream is going to say, then you would need to have some way to point out the bias and let them see the bias. If you're showing it among seasoned nationalists who are well capable to analyse an article and look for the bias, then you wouldn't need to do that as much. So that's one side of the. Let's just go back to the chat here. Talking about Paul's situation. Yeah, Jay. Yeah, great information to share with the normies, and they will believe it coming from RT. Exactly. So let's not throw out the baby with the bathwater. There's like so much good stuff in the mainstream, and because it's from the mainstream, the normies are going to believe it. The normies are they're not going to question it. It's getting very stressful. Okay, cool. Okay, coming for 20 minutes. I want to keep this short. I just wanted to talk about. This is why I need to stop maybe sharing the screen. Is it? Oh, right. There's So the flip side of this rule, this new simplistic rule that I'm proposing, that we throw it away. This rule that says all MSM bad man, all alternative media good man. We need a more nuanced approach, because there's like I'm going to show you an example of an alternative source that is absolute rubbish. Here it is. Now, somebody put this on one of our Facebook groups the other day. No, it's about 8 minutes long. I won't play it all, but basically, this video. Actually, before I play the video, let me ask you some questions, and let's establish some baselines that we all agree on. Let's establish some rules. Well, okay, so who is the president of the United States currently? Live chat, answer me. Also, what is FEMA, and does the United States currently have a constitution? So there's a 10-second delay. So those are 3 questions. I'll type them out here. Who is president? Okay. Maybe you can't really get. Maybe there's nobody watching at the moment. It says there are 5 people here, but that's okay. I mean, obviously the president of the United States is Donald Trump, and obviously the Constitution is still in place. And FEMA is the Federal Emergencies Management Agency, I think it's called. Okay, well, I'm not going to play you this article or this video, but this video makes the claim that, and when was it released? 19th of April, so that's like 2.5 weeks ago, or a week and a half ago. This makes the claim that FEMA has taken over from the president. The Constitution has been suspended, and the president is no longer in power. So it's absolute bullshit, absolute bullshit. And people are, because if you apply the rule that alternative sources are all good, and you'd miss that. Somebody who's obviously applied that rule has shared that in one of our groups, and then people will pick that up and lap it up, and it's bull. It's bull. So you need a more nuanced approach. You need to be able to go through these things and pick out look for the fact and look for the bias on an article by article basis, on a paragraph by paragraph basis, rather than just throw out the baby with the bathwater. So that was it, really. That was I want to keep it nice and short. Jake has said FEMA is FEMA. I wonder, is that an answer to my question? Who is the president of the United States? FEMA. Okay. All right, lads. Thanks for your attention. I want to keep it short. Let's see what Suzanne says. There's a story in the papers about Gemma, how good the guards are only doing a job. Then on Gemma's article, it was saying how bad the guards are when they bet that job up. Yeah. Okay. So you can have 2 stories with 2 different journalists. You see, it's not as like court. It's not exactly Pravda, where the Pravda would make sure that all the stories lined up for the same narrative. So there's still a little bit, there's still a degree of press freedom there, where somebody can be and something that isn't as critical to the regime, like the behavior of the cops. Obviously, it's something that they all lock down on and they all agree on would be mass immigration. So you can be sure that the editing job done to make sure that all their mass immigration stories are line up and are singing from the same hymn sheet. But other stuff like that, you can see that isn't quite as centrally controlled, and you can still pick out good stories if you know what to look for. So I'm making the claim for, don't take a simple let me see, I'll just remove that from the stream. Don't be taking a simplistic good cop, bad cop, black and white, but apply a little bit of nuance, and you will actually find that you can get good information that can help you make your point with the outside world. Why is presidential seal missing lately when he addresses the masses, the flag? Then Connor, I don't know. Let's address that next time. I want to keep this one short, because I think I've been making streams that are too long, and then people will watch them outside of the liveness. So thanks everybody. Don't know why. Slan, and let's see each other soon.